But this guy, this is all the maintenance
This
here.
is where
All you guys are all the developers. This is not the village.
well, we're putting in
No, there's a maintenance on these. It's like, go ahead and get you.
Okay, it is 7 PM. I'd like to get ourselves going here and start our night of business off. Call to order the zoning board for the village of Webster, February 18th, 2021. I don't know where the heck I am or what the heck date it is. But it's the 18th of February. We have a couple of administrative items we will go through first. And that was going to be one of them, Kathy, but thank you.
Sorry.
That's all right. So what we have here tonight on the agenda, I'll go through that in just a second. I want to take care of making sure that our team and our board members have had a chance to review the meeting minutes, the record of what occurred at the last meeting. And do you have any comments, addendums, or corrections that you might want to make or enter into it? If not, and you have a chance to review them, I'll take a motion to approve them as written.
I'll make a motion that we approve them as written.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Very good. So the meeting minutes are approved as written. We'll take that off to the side. Okay, for our meeting tonight here, we had two items on the agenda. The first one was Marathon Engineering, representing Greg Chambry, owners of a property located at 100 Daniel Drive. Well, I don't know whether to say this has been withdrawn, but it's not on our agenda tonight. We're going to renotice it. For anyone who's here for that one, we will renotice it tomorrow. We will have another meeting to address that one on March 4th, again at 7 PM, if anyone wants to know about that. And Mr. Chambry was in agreement with that, and so we're all set on that one. The second one is our continuing discussions and approvals around the Primark Homes application. And I will just read what's on our agenda for tonight. BME Associates on behalf of Primark Homes, under contract for 44.1 plus or minus acres on the southeast corner of Route 250 and State Road. I won't read the tax ID, but it's listed there. The applicant is appearing before the Village of Webster Zoning Board of Appeals for the following items. 1, final subdivision approval for a 124 townhome lot or unit and a proposed community center to be developed in 4 sections or phases pursuant to 137-5G of the Village Code. And then the second item on the agenda will be final site plan or a controlled site plan approval for section or phase 1, which will be the first one developed, into 31 units pursuant to 175-14B and 8 and 175-40 of the Village Code. This property is currently zoned R2 9.6. So, what we have up, why don't you pick us up? We had a few items from the last time. Talk to us about where we are, what we're seeking tonight, and what you've done since our last meeting, please. And just, I have, it's Link, right?
Yeah, I'm Link Sweetrock with BME Associates. With me also is Jim Barbado from Primark Homes. At the last meeting, we reviewed the plans and the project, and in the first meeting, the board granted the area variances for the front setback. At the second meeting we came to, overall preliminary approval was granted for the subdivision of the site plan. This evening we're looking for final approval of the site plan, and we will be phasing the project. This particular plans we submitted are for final plans for section 1, which includes the first 31 townhomes off of State Road. And you can see in the rendering, we've sort of outlined the first phase with the color, which is basically everything is consistent with what you reviewed and approved last time, other than this. We added the sidewalk connection to Lincolnshire. We actually brought it along this road, along the frontage of State, and then a connection here at Lincolnshire to create that sidewalk connection. We provided a sidewalk easement along the entire frontage in case there's ever a need to extend the sidewalks further to the east. The village will have an easement there to do the sidewalk. We also provided additional landscaping, as we discussed. We provided additional trees along the interior of the road, the additional 10 trees, and we've added additional conifer pine trees on these ends to block headlights from where that road will be, so that the headlights on these roads there'll be pines here. So we added the additional landscape and the sidewalk. Those were the big items, I believe, that we've added. We've also, so basically we've provided the final plans for section 1. We're looking to get the board's input on the first section final plans. And I think that was about all we had to catch up on for now. We have submitted all these plans to all the agencies. We're working on the SWIP and all that to move the approvals along as we go here. So with that said, the plans have been submitted to Monroe County DOT with that sidewalk, so they know that it's there as well. So, and with that, if I missed anything, let me know, and if not, we're here to answer any questions that the board or anybody has.
Well, thank you very much for that, and thank you for the changes to the suggestions that we had made last time, and I do appreciate it. Just for the record, I know we covered this at the last meeting, but Jake, I want to make sure the fire department has at least seen this or is aware of this and has no objections?
I have not provided it to the fire department. Will indicated at the last meeting in the minutes that there was adequate room for the fire apparatus to turn around. I don't know if that was his own determination or if he asked the fireman, but I'm not certain of the status of that.
Okay.
He's not, not in his notes.
That was, well, and I was reiterating what was in the last meeting. We did talk to Will about it at the last minute, at the last meeting. So, okay.
The turnarounds have been designed to meet the state turnaround code requirements for fire.
Perfect. All right, what we're gonna do is, I have no other questions. Anyone else have any questions here before we open it up to the public and ask for comments from anyone who wants to speak for or against that? Thank you.
Okay.
You will stay around, right?
Yep, we're here to help answer any questions.
There you go, thanks. All right, we'll open this up to public comment right now because this is the public meeting and will serve as that. If you want to speak, I would ask that you just come up here, or if you have a very hearty voice, please just stand up from where you are. What we need is your name and your address, and then give us your thoughts or comments.
I'm David Castor. I live at 1308 State Road. I'll start. I listened to Mark's comments at the beginning of the last meeting about how getting this development right was so important. And at the end of the meeting, I watched it basically fall apart. There was a tremendous push to get a motion on the floor to approve the preliminary design, and I don't see any reason why everything has to be pushed quite so fast. It seems to be quite contrary to do things as rapidly as what I see happening, contrary to getting it right. Last meeting, I listened with quite a bit of interest when Carl very gently proposed that he had some concerns about people turning left out of Road C onto 250. That and the comment, the extensive comments about the sidewalks and how to tie it into Lincolnshire. It dawned on me that nobody that lives on State Road or understands what the traffic is like on State Road would ever be in favor of inviting or enticing anybody to cross it. The idea is, unless you're going to put in a bridge or a underpass, the idea of pedestrians going across State Road, especially near Lincolnshire, is just asking for big problems. That prompted me to think a little bit more about the entirety of the location in terms of the traffic. Now, I know the DOT report and the analysis that you did in terms of the amount of traffic that it would add, which was a total of 131 trips a day, didn't bother anybody at the DOT about quantity of flow of traffic, and that makes sense because there's so much traffic there now that a couple of percent more is not going to affect anything particularly. It's the character of the traffic around State Road and 250 that troubles me greatly. And I've had a lot of time to think about it for the past month, and it seems that there's a big unintended consequence that's lurking in this design, and that's its placement. Now, an unintended consequence is one of those things, that it's, oh, why didn't I think of that? Or, why didn't somebody say something about it? Well, that's what I'm doing now. I'm saying something about it. The traffic on State Road and on 250 can be characterized by, I thought, one word: speed. Traffic comes into and out of that intersection at high rates of speed. 40 miles an hour is the speed limit on State Road. 40 miles an hour is the speed limit through the intersection on 250. And as Will Barham quickly recognized after your comment, that's right where Road C comes out, right where it turns to 55. So people coming in from Fairport are suddenly having to slow down. And, okay, they may take their foot off the gas, but they're focused on that light. As are the people coming down State Road. They're focused on that light. Is it going to change? Am I going to make it through? They don't slow down till the last possible minute when it does change and they do have to brake. Other than that, they're going right through. It's 2 lanes, 1 lane in each direction for each road. There's no advanced greens, there's no turn lanes, nothing. It's as it has been since I was a little kid. So, it's got a traffic light, that's all it's got. When you add what I'm going to call, I don't know if there was an official term for them, traffic stumble points at the distance from the corner where roads A and row C are proposed to go in, you're adding them right where people are accelerating away from the intersection at I won't necessarily say full throttle, but if you listen to them, they're on the throttles pretty good. Or they're thinking about slowing down at that point. And as I said, they're focused on the light. They're not focused on what might be coming in from the sides. So you put driveways, curb cuts in at those locations, and all of a sudden you've got people slowing down, turning, changing lanes. It's a recipe for disaster. There's going to be a lot of accidents there. Now, I'm sure some of you are thinking now, well, Dave, you're talking about 1 in a million possibilities. Why, it's not going to happen all that often. Obviously, having it happen once is bad enough, but let me tell you about the 1 in a million possibilities. They do happen. Heather Byam was killed 5 seconds up the road from where Road C is proposed to come in. She was hit by a motorcycle first and then a car on a Sunday morning. That's truly a 1 in a million occurrence. I was in the jury pool for the trial of the lady driving the car that hit her. But I was excused from duty because my own sister-in-law, Ruth Ann's sister, died because a drunk driver decided to pull out and inexplicably pass the car in front of them and hit Marlene's car head on. The driver that pulled out was a half a mile from his own driveway. We'll never know why he did that. He died at the scene. Marlene died later. Personally, last August 20th, I was coming home from Greece. We were coming home from Greece about 9 o'clock at night, just past the 390 underpass, headed east on 104. I was in the second to the right lane when a pickup truck, 1994 full-size pickup truck, apparently came down off the entrance ramp, never stopped, came across the lane, ran into the back of us, pushed us out of the lane. He went on through, spun around, and ended up half in the median, half not. We had $7,000 worth of damage done to our car. Had we not, if we had been half a second sooner, or he'd been a half a second sooner, he would have hit us and probably slid us sideways and rolled us over. I try not to think about that too much. 1 in a million things happen. But what takes a 1 in a million thing to become a reality? And that's opportunity. And that's what's going on here. When we create places where people are turning, having to make judgments as how fast other cars are coming at them, 131 times a day, that's 48,000 opportunities in a year. It's really hard to believe that something very bad isn't going to happen at one of these stumble points, as I call them, that aren't there now. Now I'm wondering, I mean, you said you've been in contact with the county DOT about the sidewalk thing. And I know you have to get approvals for curb cuts in both places, from the state on the one on 250 and the other one. But my question is, has somebody analyzed the overall situation of the design to approve the way, where they're placed, And whether or not the design of the entrance itself meets a standard. And I bring that up because both of the entrance roads have features right next to them, adjacent to the driveway itself, road driveway, that are depressions. The ones off State Road are gullies that if somebody missed the drive, or heaven forbid got rear-ended while they were waiting to turn and were driven into it, then the car is gonna drop abruptly into the depression and stop very suddenly. And as they say, it's not the fall that kills you, it's the sudden stop at the bottom. When things try to accelerate or decelerate very rapidly, high forces are generated. Going back to the placement of them in the first place, because they're in that 40 mile an hour or higher speed range, a car, for instance, going at 40 miles an hour carries 4 times the energy of a car going at 20 miles an hour. The energy generated by a moving object is proportional to the square of its speed. So when you double the speed, you quadruple the energy involved. That's why people die in 40 mile an hour crashes. And that's where we're putting these exit roads. Going back to whether the DOT has approved the curb cuts, I'm not sure what happened at the curb cut at the north end of I'm going to call it the row house development on Phillips Road. But that's been removed and it's been blocked off. There's yellow pillars. I'm not sure what happened there. The first question comes to mind is, were the proper approvals not in place and they built anyway, only to have them rejected and they had to take it out? That's why I'm concerned that things are happening too fast for a thorough investigation of whether this entire project is going to come off and we're going to get it right. There's a concern that I have about whether is the DEC completely on board, and do you have the proper permits for doing what you've proposed to do with the stormwater? I don't want to have happen what happened over in Vista Villas in Chili. That's a development that, as I understand it, had a problem with stormwater runoff that they weren't able to solve, and they had to abandon it after phase 1. Apparently phases 2 and 3 are now designated forever wild because they couldn't solve the problem. I listened with some interest, of course, to what Peter Elder had to say last week about how the comprehensive plan, in particular, references this parcel as being recommended to be rezoned to R1. Apparently that didn't get done, and it's unfortunate because it was, in my mind, obviously it should have been done. And if it had been R1, I think whoever finds your sites for you wouldn't have paid any attention to it. And we wouldn't be having this discussion now. So I question whether the zoning is even appropriate for what we're talking about doing here, or whether it's just a leftover from the last time that it was rezoned. Speaking of a previous rezoning, back in the late 70s, the village asked Mr. Shantz to come in and build on the property that he had previously decided that he couldn't do the same way that he had done the rest of the tract. And at the end of that, because the village had asked him to come in, obviously they were going to rezone it. And at the end of it, the person who sits in Mark's chair at the time told Ruth Ann and I to our face that indeed that if in 3 years' time it wasn't built upon, it didn't take advantage of that rezoning, that it would revert to being R1 again. I have no idea what, that didn't happen either, and maybe it wasn't true at all. Maybe there isn't any automatic reversal. I haven't been able to track that down. But it certainly seems that all the way along, the zoning that allows townhouses to be built here has been an afterthought, a leftover. And that's the way it seems here, is that had things gone as they should have gone, we wouldn't be here right now. We listened in the past 2 meetings to many people who stood up here in where I'm standing now and voiced their concerns over what was happening, and none were in favor of it. The only person that stood up here and said anything in favor of building it was Jim himself. You'd expect that, right? I mean, it's his business. He made a very eloquent speech last time about how it's his business, and that's what developers do, and they fill the needs of the aging population with the kinds of homes that they want to downsize to. And I can't fault him for that. That's exactly what businesses do. But let's be sure that we understand the difference between need and want. There is no actual need for these townhouses to be built on this site. Jim's company's not going to go out of business if he doesn't build here. He's got teams of people, I'm sure, looking for other sites. Probably got more than he's got the capability to build on. Want? Yes. And in terms of the people who will come here, it's one of those, if he builds it, they will come. And I don't doubt that. He'll sell them all. There is a question of, will they be occupied 15 or 20 years down the road when the baby boomers who are fueling this style of building are gone, and there's no following boom in terms of people that want this size housing. Will we have, given the plethora of this style in Webster Village now, will these places be sitting empty, and we'll be talking about zombie houses? So all in all, I think in light of how we go about getting this right, we need to understand that while there is no particular need to put this townhouse complex on this site, it can be built somewhere else. It's a lot safer for its potential inhabitants and the traveling public that has to deal with 131 trips a day by senior drivers having to deal with the speed, the road conditions, etc., that are caused by, indeed, these locations of these roads. That it would be understandable if Jim indeed withdrew his application to build here. And if he doesn't see it that way, it seemed to me reasonable that the board, representing the people of the village of Webster and of the motoring public that has to deal with the traffic around it, that they understand that it would be reasonable to say, this is not an appropriate place to place this development. And it needs to be built somewhere else.
Mr. Casper, thank you very much. I appreciate your comment.
Thank you for listening.
Anyone else from the general public like to speak for or against?
Rick Walder, 20 Elm Street. I just want to elaborate a couple on the points there. I'm one of the baby boomers. I'm the first generation of the baby boomers, the oldest of them. And I see too much of downsized type housing been built in Webster Village already. And I also fear that when I'm gone and the rest of the baby boomers are gone, the village is going to have a zombie village or a zombie section up here. That this and other areas of the village are going to be abandoned unless all the young couples decide only to have one child, which I don't see ever happening. The other point I wanted to make is on the supposed sidewalk along State Road that's going to go down as far as Lincolnshire. If this becomes part of the village, it should very much be connected to the village. And the point on traffic is very evident there. If this does go through, I think we should require not only a sidewalk going that far, but a lit crosswalk with a landing pad on the Lincolnshire side so people can have a safe place to get to, and preferably with some kind of cautionary lights, flashing lights or something to mark this intersection, because this is bad. It could actually have a extension of the stoplight or something timed into the light at the corner. I've seen that done in many intersections as I've driven around New York State, where there's an additional light there timed, so if somebody pushes the button, it will change a stoplight there in time with the light so it doesn't interfere with traffic. So I would like to see something done there for a crosswalk, not just a sidewalk that dead ends there. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak for or against or express their feelings?
My name is John Carrig, 1155 Webster Road. My main concern was the entrance at 250, but before I start that, just elaborate on Mr. Casper's thing about when it was zoned from R1 to whatever it is now,
R2.
R2. Was there a 3-year window the developer was supposed to build in? And after that 3 years, was it rezoned back to R1 again, or what happened?
I do not know what happened, and I don't know if there's anyone here who does know.
That's a big deal if the zoning got back to the original thing. My main concern tonight was just, I never liked the entrance at 250. The fact that the left-hand turn from Road C to 250 is going to be tough. Speed limit is still 40 miles an hour there. I don't like the fact that you can go from 250 to make a right-hand turn into C to cut across the light at State Road. That's another possibility there. But, and also, I don't like the fact that those houses, those last units on facing 250 are going to be like 10 foot above the ground, and that road grade up to is almost 7% road grade. So I'm going to suggest that possibly if the developers can move those units about 50 or 100 feet further away from 250, it would maybe diminish that road grade up there and possibly get that view of those mountain and a molehill kind of thing from those houses there, being about 10 foot above the ground. If anybody can envision that,
I
those
can't,
houses.
can you do that again for me, because I was gonna ask you to tell me
Well,
what you were talking about.
those units, 79, these numbers are different here for some reason. Those last units, those last 14 units there on toward 250, they're like 10 foot above the ground, the driveway elevation. And of course, they need to be that high to get it out of the wetness for the basements and also the gravity for getting the sanitary sewer gravity run, okay? So that's gonna be quite an eyesore, I think, from 250. My point is if we can push those farther away from 250, it may ease that a little bit. But I still don't like the entrance of 250. That's my concern there.
And your entrance on the 250, by that you mean Road C,
Road C, yes.
okay?
Yeah. That's all.
John, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Mrs. Castor.
I just have one question, so I think you can probably hear me. I'm Suzanne Castor, 1308 State Road, Statesville. You said there wasn't going to be blasting. I know there's bedrock about 5 feet down. Is that correct? And you're going to put basements in all these units. How deep are the basements?
They're
About 5?
13 course basements, 12 course basements.
They're a mix of 12 and 13 quarts.
But they're,
That's about 8 feet, 8'8".
we verified all the rock elevations though, and the basements are set on the rock.
So you wouldn't have to blast at all?
If we run into any blasting, it would be a deep sewer here or there if we ran into rock that was up a little higher. So we don't foresee a blasting for any basements.
Did you have anything to add to that, Lane?
No, I just, there's a couple questions in there that I guess I just wrote down that I could provide a little more input for. Regarding the traffic, there are some questions about the geometry and the location of the access locations. So when we submit for the DOT permits, which we've already done and we've already had correspondence with Monroe County and the state DOT, they have reviewed the location of what we're proposing and agree with where we have located them. That was part of our due diligence and coordination at the beginning before we brought in the plan to make sure that these locations were correct. And then the geometry, the site distance, all the parameters, the site distance he was mentioned about, AASHTO standards for the speed on the road that we have to design to make sure that you're the line of sight for somebody using that driveway, they have the requirements to see the site distance based on the speeds. So both these access locations have been reviewed and vetted with the DOTs. They are in agreement with the location and they're in agreement with the geometry that we're showing here. Also, based on, there was, we were referencing the 130 trips, I think you were referencing. So, basically, it's 45 trips in the morning and 45 in the PM peak. So it's, 130 would be all day at different times, or, and based on the type of residents that you're looking here, you don't know how many are going to be. We're calculating it based on what we believe would be the peak in the morning and peak in the afternoon. Which is how the traffic study is done and based on. Regarding the drainage, I think we've talked about drainage a lot here. We're doing a lot of things to improve the drainage here. Just to reiterate, this pond is taking existing drainage issues and we are mitigating them by building a pond that's, we also are, using the material. We need to use the material for the site to fill, but we're also creating bringing drainage from the north into this pond and rerouting it all the way around the property to the east to make sure we're not, the water's not getting there, that's running there consistently now as it is today. So that is, we are trying to solve problems with the drainage, and that's what we're doing with this pond and the size of it. And regarding the DEC requirements, this will be reviewed by the DEC as part of the SWIP. That is prepared. This design has been designed in conformance with the DEC standards for stormwater management quantity and quality controls for the site. The other thing I just heard was the rezoning, the R2 9.6 zoning. I just wanted to say again, that allows 8 units per acre. So per the zoning, if you did the 44 acres at 8, you're talking 352 units allowed on the site, and we're proposing 124. So, I mean, it's the code as it is allows a lot more than what we're proposing here. We feel we've come up with a really great plan. We've provided green areas in the middle. We've done a lot of things. We've provided buffering. We added the landscaping. We can add, some additional landscaping maybe along Road C here, but we're providing these ponds. The first unit off of 250, just to give you an idea, is, that first unit is about 200 foot off the center line of 250. So these units, and they're not fronting on 250.
It would be the ones on the north side of Road C?
Right, it's about 150 from the edge of pavement, around 175 maybe to the center line.
Okay.
For this unit. And code allows, 50 foot. So we're back 100 feet further than what code allows there. Yeah, so I just wanted to provide some of that information for the board.
And I'm gonna put Michael on the spot here. Michael, if this were R1, 13.1 is it? 44 acres. How many homes could they build on there, and what would the impact in traffic be, assuming the same number of vehicles per house?
Wow. So R1 is what?
13.1.
Right, but it's half an acre per.
Is it 20 by 300? I don't know.
No, that's
Third of an
the third.
Third of an acre.
Third of an acre, thank you.
acre. So a third of an acre divided by, or
44.
44 divided by a third of an acre.
You'd be around 120,
Yeah.
rough numbers. And we're proposing what here?
124.
Thank you.
But they couldn't build that much because you still got to allow for the ponds.
Yeah, just quick math, that's 145, but yeah, you'd have to take out for the ponds and the roads. and
Yeah.
all that. It's just a quick baseline calc, but I mean, the zoning's, is R296, so it allows the development as we're proposing. And it allows a lot more than what we're proposing.
So Link, a question I have for like the DOT and the county, generally when they do their review, right, aren't they usually doing 5 miles over the speed limit for their site distance?
Right, everything's designed at 5,
So if
everything's
it's 40
designed 5
miles an
miles.
hour, they're designing their site distance for 45 miles an hour.
Correct.
That's what I thought.
So it's everything's designed assuming that people are going 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, basically, is how.
Right.
Where's the other thought I just had? Oh, and then just going back to, there was discussions about the crosswalk being, I mean, I believe the DOT wouldn't allow us to do anything because you're sending them to nowhere. So basically, we're bringing them here so that they can use the roads to get towards the village. But I don't think you'd never get them to approve like actual crosswalk because you're sending them to no sidewalk across the street, so.
Okay. Mr. Albright, did you have another question? I saw your hand go up. Rick?
Well, the answer was, I don't believe. Has anybody checked? What you believe and what they do is maybe a different thing.
There's one about 400 feet down the road, or 1,000, not even, right near Christie Lane. the sidewalk that crosses the street, or a crosswalk that crosses and goes to nothing.
Those are,
Just a little landing on the other side, yeah. Right near the school.
I just didn't think they would want to to invite people
No, I-
across if there's
I don't-
not something across the street.
Yeah, I don't disagree that it seems illogical sometimes, but there is one there, so.
When you assume there's a saying about that,
Thanks for sharing. Yeah.
so.
Any other comments, questions?
I just want to throw out my 2 cents about the Village Walk, which is another townhouse, privately owned townhouse development in the village. And I believe that was started maybe late 80s, maybe into 1990. So that's almost 30 years. Appreciation goes up all the time. There's never an empty house over there.
Which one is that, Sharon?
By Dunkin' Donuts on Reynolds Road, that's
Gotcha,
Village
on
Walk.
there,
The ones that Mark Ford developed.
yes.
Right. So I think the trends just are different, whether it's seniors, middle-aged people. Yes, there are a few with 1 or 2 children, but still goes through. With the 2-bedroom homes, you do fit in a couple children.
Other comments or thoughts? From anyone? Okay. Thank you, appreciate that one. All right, so what I'm gonna do is we'll close the public portion of this meeting here. We're gonna stay in session though, and now the board can discuss this among themselves. There are a couple of things that they have to do if they were inclined to grant final approval for site plan, or, I'm gonna get it out here. If they were in final subdivision approval and final site plan approval, they would have to designate the lead agency for this. They would have to define the seeker type for it, and that's if they were inclined to do that. So there's a discussion involved here. What is submitted with this is a full environmental assessment form or seeker. I've gone over it pretty closely. I actually did look at this. Anyone have any questions on that or how they want to go about that?
You already declared yourself lead agents
Thank
a
you.
couple of meetings ago.
I have a little list of things that I go through up here. So what we need,
I believe I indicated a couple of meetings ago, it's an unlisted action.
and as such, it requires what?
Well, it requires that you have to review the full environmental assessment form. There's a part 2 to it that the board uses that the applicant submitted. He kind of already checked some boxes. Of course, you can uncheck those boxes and do whatever you want, but you basically need to go through each of the potential impacts that are set forth on the part 2 and determine whether there is either no or a small impact, or whether it's a moderate to large impact. And then after you go through that exercise, there's a part 3 that I think Joe handed out to everybody the first time people were around, which is the form where you take the actual resolution to determine whether there is no significant impacts on the environment, or there are significant impacts, and then you can require an environmental impact statement be prepared and submitted.
But you would do that on a significant environmental impact if you determine that.
Yes, you only need an environmental impact statement if you determine that there is a potential significant environmental impact to occur with the proposed action.
So you're suggesting, and I think I got it, go through part two,
Yes.
at least in each heading, and then all of the answers associated with that.
Yes.
Okay, so that's what we're gonna do right now. So on the land impact, it says proposed action may involve construction on or physical alteration of land, subsurface, or proposed site. The applicant has checked yes. Any disagreement there?
No.
I hear no disagreement here. All right, then, A through H. And the proposed action may involve construction on land where depth to water table is less than 3 feet. It says no or small impact may occur.
You know where the proposed water table is?
It's probably 4 to 5 feet at least, you know, to the rock,
What's the depth of rock
yeah,
roughly now?
roughly now, and we're gonna lower it too as well, so.
So any question on the small to no impact?
No.
All right. The proposed action may involve construction on slopes 15% or greater. The answer here is no or small impact. Agree, disagree, or otherwise? Agree. All right, C, the proposed action may involve construction on land where bedrock is exposed or generally within 5 feet of existing ground surface. We have an answer here of no or small impact. That's right around the level that I heard on bedrock, didn't I?
Yeah, I mean, it varies from about 6 to 8 across the site, so
Okay, I heard 4 to 5 earlier.
I don't think that was me, but. We're putting, I mean, there's rock there, but we've verified it all, and it's, you know, we're setting basements on top of it and filling, so it's not, you know, we're above it with everything, so.
What I heard was Link said that the water table was 4 to 5 feet, but the rock was 6 to 8 feet. The water's gotta be above.
Fair enough.
And there is no exposed bedrock left.
There's no
anywhere
exposed
on the
bedrock
site.
anywhere
Everything is topsoil.
that I've seen, no.
Okay, so any disagreement with that then, at small or minimal impact?
No.
No.
All right, the proposed action may involve the excavation or removal of more than 1,000 tons of natural material. They have that checked as no or small impact may occur. Any question on that? All right,
Wait,
go ahead.
is the site balanced?
No,
You have to net,
we're short, so we're using
you
everything.
have to import material.
Mhm.
You're gonna move more than 1,000 tons.
Oh, yeah,
We're not gonna remove.
but we're not removing it.
It says
But you
remove,
need
I
to bring
believe.
in even more than
We'll
that.
have to bring more in.
Right, because you're setting everything up.
Yeah.
Okay. Any disagreement on that? Small or no impact? The proposed action may involve construction that continues for more than 1 year or in multiple phases. The specific request here was that this would occur in 4 different phases. They have moderate to large impact. That tells me yes, more than 1 year. Okay, any disagreement on moderate to large impact? Okay, moving on. The proposed action may result in an increased erosion, whether from physical disturbance or vegetation removal, including from treatment by herbicides. They've got no to minimal impact.
SWIP doesn't allow,
Agreed.
agree,
This will,
SWIP rules
Okay,
take care of that.
the proposed action is or may be located in an erosion control hazard area. They have no or small impact.
Coastal,
Coastal, excuse me, in a coastal erosion, what did I say?
not that. That's a no.
This parcel is not on the coast.
Those correct.
All right, And no, so I hear no disagreement on small to minimal impact. And I'm using the word minimal, it says no or small impact. All right, number 2, impact on geological features. The proposed action may result in the modification or destruction of, or inhibit access to any unique or unusual landforms on the site. For example, cliffs, dunes, minerals, fossils, caves, and other. The answer here is no.
Agreed.
Not that I'm aware of, yes, I agree. All right, so they've got no on that. They did not answer on questions 3, 4, because the answer is no. Number 3, impacts on surface water. The proposed action may affect one or more wetlands or other surface water bodies, for example, streams, rivers, ponds, lakes, etc. If the answer is yes, questions A1 or A to L. If no, move on to section 4. They have checked this one yes. Does anybody disagree with that? No disagreement. All right. So going through A through L. The proposed action may create a new body of water. We talking about an ocean here? I know what you're talking about.
A stream, a river, a pond, or a lake.
They have a sort of detention or retention pond?
Detention.
Detention. But it says no or small impact may occur. I would argue that it's probably made the situation in that particular area better, but that's my understanding of it. Any disagreement on that?
No.
All right, the proposed action may result in an increase or decrease of over 10% or more than a 10-acre increase or decrease in the surface area of any body of water. The answer here is no or small impact that they've provided. Is there disagreement on that? None. The proposed action may involve dredging more than 100 cubic yards of mineral from a wetland or water body. The answer is no or small impact may occur. I would agree with that. Anyone else? All agreements. The proposed action may involve construction within or adjoining a freshwater or tidal wetland or in the bed or banks of any other water body. The answer they've placed is no or small impact may occur. I would agree with that. No disagreement. All right, the proposed action may create turbidity in a water body either from upland erosion, runoff, or by disturbing bottom sediments. They've provided an answer of no or small impact.
Agreed.
All agreements. Okay. The proposed action may include construction of one or more intakes for withdrawal of water from surface water. They have no or small impact. I'm not aware of you doing that there.
Well,
Well,
they've got
it'll be
drainage
intake
inlets
into
for
the
the
pond.
water system.
Yeah, but what it said here was the proposed action may include construction of one or more intakes for withdrawal of water.
Surface water.
Yeah, surface water.
Yeah. They're picking up the surface water and directing it into the pond.
Okay.
So that's what it's supposed to do.
Right, so you have to determine, so there is an impact, because
Yep.
they gotta have an intake into the pond, right? So now you gotta determine, is it a small impact, or is it a moderate to large impact?
Comments, folks? Well, I would have thought that it was small. As I said at the beginning there, I thought it made a bad situation better by doing this.
So then you go, and you could argue and say it's a big impact because it's a big improvement.
Well, but we're looking at negative
We're looking
impact.
at negative.
Right.
So does anyone disagree with the no or the small impact may occur? And I would put it in the small category.
Agreed.
The proposed action may include construction of one or more outfalls for discharge of water to surface waters. You can need a permit from the state for that. But
Well, there's gonna be some at the other end of the pond where the water's gonna go out.
It says wastewater.
isn't that where it's going already? Yeah.
So it says wastewater.
Well, that's,
The
that's,
wastewater, right?
That's
that's
not,
a
not
regional
drainage.
street.
So no.
Better than
We got other problems.
So we've got a no, we've got no here. Any disagreements?
No,
All right, the proposed action may cause soil erosion or otherwise create a source of stormwater discharge that may lead to siltation or other degradation of receiving bodies of water.
no.
They have listed no or small impact. Agreement or disagreement? Agreement on that. The proposed action may affect the water quality of any water bodies within or downstream of the site of the proposed action. And remember, when it says impact, it means negative impact. They have said no or small impact. I would agree with that, particularly with what they're doing on the pond. The proposed action may involve the application of pesticides or herbicides in or around any body of water. I have not heard that you were going to do that. They've said no or a small impact
Small
will occur.
impact if there is, like, it'll have to meet requirements and stuff.
It would be an application with the DEC license. No disagreements? They have put down no. All right, I agree with that. The proposed action may require construction of new or expansion of existing wastewater treatment facilities. I have not heard that that is going to occur.
So does that include the sanitary sewers themselves? Is that a wastewater treatment facility?
I believe that is met, do you have to do anything, improvements to the actual where it's treated, which is not the case here.
And to tell you the truth, how I thought of that was, did this require an expansion of the settling basins or aeration basins or whatever they're using at the wastewater treatment plant? And I said, they've listed that as no or a small impact may occur. I'm not aware of any new construction that's going to take place at the wastewater treatment plant. Okay, no disagreement. Any other impacts it's not answered? What would your answer have been on that one? It said to fill out A through L.
Which one is that?
Last one, top of page 3. It says other impacts. You didn't answer it.
I think that's if
This is
this
continuation.
board identifies any other impacts on surface water other than what was
Right.
set forth. It's really not up to the applicant to figure that out.
Or for the applicant, I took it a different way. I took it for the applicant to identify anything that hasn't been identified previously in the application. Either way, I don't see any significant impacts here. Does anyone else? Answers no all around from the board. 4, impact on groundwater. The proposed action may result in new or additional usage of groundwater or may have the potential to introduce contaminants to the groundwater or aquifer. They have said yes to this. So, by answering yes, we move on to the questions. The proposed action may require new well water supplies, or create additional demand on supplies from existing water supply wells. I don't think there's any wells involved in this at all, are there? The answer was no or small impact. Disagreement or no? None. All right. Water supply demand from the proposed action may exceed safe and sustainable withdrawal capacity rate of the local supplier or the aquifer. They have said no or small impact. It's been reviewed with the county. They
Yep.
take that into consideration is the way I understand it.
Water authority is in good shape, yep, with approval.
They have no or small impact, I would agree with that. Any disagreement? The proposed action may allow or result in residential uses in areas without water and sewer service. No. They put down no or small impact. It's gonna have full service, sewer service, isn't it? Yep. The proposed action may include or require water, wastewater discharge to the groundwater. Hold on. They have put down no or small impact. Any disagreement?
No.
Thank you. All right, the proposed action may result in the construction of water supply wells in locations where groundwater is or suspected to be contaminated. He's got no. I would agree with that. The proposed action may require the bulk storage of petroleum or chemical products over groundwater or an aquifer. He's got no or small impact may occur. I would agree with that statement. Everyone agrees? The proposed action may involve the commercial application of pesticides within 100 feet of a potable drinking water or irrigation sources. Not that I am aware of. All that comes from Monroe County. They've answered no or small impact. All right, thank you. Everyone agrees. Number 5, the impact on flooding. The proposed action may result in development on land subject to flooding. They've answered no to that one. What do we feel about that?
It sounds like the elevation, the ultimate elevation of the property is higher than the surrounding area, so chances of this area flooding seem to be smaller than the surrounding area. So I agree with the no flooding.
Yeah, but that's not the question. The question is, the proposed action may result in development on land subject to flooding. The answer that they've provided us is no. I think we have some flooding.
Where does this parcel sit? In the flood zone?
It is not in the designated flood zone, I agree with you.
So to me, it's just a low area. It just collects water and because of clay soils or whatever, it just doesn't go.
When they're answering no, don't we just skip that rest of the question?
If we agree with it, if we accept their answer, we have the ability to change that answer and then go through the rest of the questions in this section.
Oh, I didn't say that.
Pardon me?
I didn't see them saying no here, yes or
Yeah, no, on mine, they've got a no check.
no. Okay.
Yeah, but if you read the rest of the questions, it talks about the development causing flooding in a floodplain. This project's not in a floodplain.
It is not in a floodplain.
So the
I agree with
development
you.
is actually going to improve the
I agree with that
retention
also.
of water on the site. So to me, the answer is no.
All right,
But,
go ahead.
I think you get to the same result, but if you look at 5D, the proposed action may result in or require modification of existing drainage patterns. Yeah, they're gonna modify existing drainage patterns, they admit that, that's what they plan to do, but is that gonna result in a negative impact?
No,
Hopefully it's gonna be a positive impact.
everything we hear says it's
So,
positive.
so I think you could probably check yes there,
See, I disagree with
but
that.
everything else is gonna end up saying no.
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, the only reason I disagree with that is because generally the water is ponding on this site anyways and eventually goes to where they're going to discharge it anyways, which is going into the town of Penfield through the creek and then
Going
back
south.
up. Right, so to me, it's not changing any drainage pattern.
But there is existing drainage across the state road there. It comes from the Shands Tract
Right,
to the north and drains through that property already, so there are existing drainage patterns there.
right, but it's gonna keep going the same way it
No,
normally
it
does.
does, this disrupts it, this channelizes it, makes it better. I think is the way you described what
Well,
it's doing.
I agree with that.
And we all agree, Jake, I think that it does make a situation better. The question was that question answered properly? And should we go through the questions, or do we accept it as no, subject to flooding? And Michael, I agree, it's not in a floodplain, but some of the major comments that we've heard was water and the flooding.
And I agree with that.
And it's gonna make it better. Everything we've heard it makes it better, but. So,
I guess it's, they don't give you definitions for any of this stuff. So as the land sits there today, you talk about, water ponds on the land. Is that flooding? Is ponding of water, flooding of water? I don't know. But I guess it's.
The reason I check it the way I do is because I think if you look in the design, and if you look in the handbook, I think it's all based on floodplains and floodways. And we don't have a floodplain or a floodway here.
and we agree with that.
So, yeah, that's why, I'm just telling you the reason I check that is no, because there's no association.
And I think it's gonna get us to the same place, but
Yeah.
have we, the
It's
question
really
I
up to
have
you.
in my
It's really
mind
up to
is,
you.
have we properly assessed the environmental risk?
And that's up to you guys, yeah.
Thank you. Don, if we,
Like you said, you end up at the same place, so I don't really.
what's the implication of us changing?
So long as Joe's minutes reflect that you had this lengthy discussion about the impact on flooding, I think you're fine.
Sounds good.
What's the implication of us changing the answer and then going through the questions? Can't we do that?
Well, technically, you should be filling it out in the first place. If you look at the instructions, the part 2, it says it's to be completed by the lead agency.
So we're doing
Sort of
that.
as a courtesy, Link filled it out for you.
So we're doing that right now then.
But he really shouldn't have done that. But, because you're supposed to be doing it. So that's why you have a blank one also. So you can, but.
Other communities are asking me to do it now, so that's why I tend
No, and I appreciate
I
that.
tend to do it just to give it to you. You can, once again, it's your document, so it's up to you, but
And I think the due diligence portion of this gets down to, did we have the discussion? Did we change any of the answers, or did we just review it? And that's, and I'm going to just make a recommendation for the quick 5 or 10 minutes that'll take. I think there's a potential that it may have an impact on land subject to flooding, and then we ought to change that answer from no over to yes, and I've been changing on here, any place that we change them and initialing it, and then go through the 5 or 6, 7 questions. How do we feel about that? Okay, I didn't hear any disagreements. As a matter of fact, I heard all agreements. So, we said if there is impact on flooding, recognizing that this is not in a designated floodplain, but we're going to go through the questions anyhow. So the proposed action may result in development of a designated floodway. I would say no or small impact on that. I don't think that we're going to have a floodway developed out of this.
No.
Everyone agree?
Yes.
Good. Proposed action may result in development within a 100-year floodplain. I don't think this is a floodplain at all. So we've said no. Everyone agree?
Yes.
Proposed action may result in development within a 500-year, this is one Moses, but a 500-year floodplain. I don't think so either.
We're not gonna be road.
Fourth question, the proposed action may result in or require modification of existing drainage patterns.
I would say no.
I would have said yes.
For the bad.
To me, they're changing the drainage patterns on the site. They're moving water from over here to over there. I agree with that. But the general overall consistency is the water is coming from the north, it's going through the site, and it's leaving out the south. It's still maintaining it. It's still gonna be at existing conditions based on their pond size and their outlet structure and all that.
Well, regardless of that, the impact, I think, would have been small or
Oh, yeah.
no, yes.
But that's why I say it's no.
Okay. Michael says it's no, what do you think? We get general agreement agreement from everyone, including myself. All right, the proposed action may change floodwaters that contribute to flooding negatively. And if we look at that negatively, we've got a no or small impact on that. If there is a dam located on the site of the proposed action, is the dam in need of repair or upgrade? No, there is no dam. Last question. Other impacts, I don't know of any. I'm just gonna write in here, none with small or no impact. Agreed?
Yes.
Thank you for the extra time. I think that was the right thing to do. All right, impacts on air. The proposed action may include a state-regulated air emission source. I don't think so, but I'll listen to anybody. So we say no, we get to move on to section 7. All right.
Electric heat, huh?
To the question? Okay. Section 7, impact on plants and animals. The proposed action may result in a loss of flora or fauna.
Yes.
I think that's a yes. And I think I'm getting nods around here. So yes says we go through and we answer A through F. The proposed action may cause reduction in population or loss of individuals of any threatened or endangered species as listed on the New York State or the federal as listed by New York State or the federal government that use this site or are found on, over, or near the site.
Well, they have to submit a request from the state if there's any endangered species or plants, and I'm assuming they gotta know.
Yeah, there's none identified.
And I haven't heard of any identified throughout this process. So our answer would be no or small impact. Everyone agree?
Yes.
All right, question B, the proposed action may result in a reduction or degradation of any habitat used by any rare, threatened, or endangered species as listed by New York State or the federal government. Not aware of any. Everyone agrees?
Yes.
C, the proposed action may cause a reduction in population or loss of individuals of any species of special concern or conservation need as listed by New York State or the federal government that uses this site or are found on, over, or near this site. Again, we're not aware of any. The proposed action may result in a reduction or degradation of any habitat used by any species of special concern and conservation need as listed by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation or the federal government. None. Everyone agree?
Yes.
E, the proposed action may diminish the capacity of a registered national natural resource to support the biological community it was established to protect. I'm not aware of that. All in the front, no or small. The proposed action may result in the removal of or ground disturbance in any portion of a designated significant natural community. I'm not aware of any. Everyone agrees the proposed action on G may substantially interfere with nesting, breeding, foraging, or overwintering habitat. That's great. For the predominant species that occupy or use the project site.
So what is the predominant?
I was going to ask him, what is the predominant species?
Small mammals, squirrels,
Deer, squirrels, or what?
deer and small mammals.
So does it have a negative impact on deers or small animals? Squirrels? I'm not aware of darn near anything that will impact squirrels. I mean, I think, yeah. All right, so the answer would be no or small impact? Agreed. The proposed action requires the conversion of more than 10 acres of forest, grassland, or any other regional or locally important habitat. All right, first of all, first part of that, it does impact more than 10 acres. Is it a forest, grassland, or other regionally or locally important habitat? I'm stopping there only to say that this is important to a lot of folks in this village, and that is evidenced by the number of folks that come out here. But is it a negative impact on a grassland or other regionally or locally important habitat? I don't know what is a regional or local habitat. Would that be like 1,000 acres small?
I don't think so.
I would say some sort of colony of animals that they're done.
No, 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 take the time.
All right, so at least we had a discussion on 7:10. The answer is small or no impact? Agreed. All right, and A through J. All right, I, the proposed action, commercial, industrial, or recreational projects only involves the use of herbicide or pesticides, does not apply, so we don't have to answer that one. And other impacts, I'm not aware of any. All right, number 8, impact on agricultural resources. The proposed action may impact agricultural resources. Answer yes or no. They have a no down here. By answering no, they skip to section 9. What do we think about that?
They're not the farmland.
I'm not aware of it being that.
Farmland.
Ag assessment on the property right next door.
What?
Is the property right next door, ag assessment or an ag district?
Say that again, I
I think
didn't.
is the property right next door to the
Property to the
east?
south is ag, but,
Yeah, and to the east, I think is.
but we're not really, I mean, this property's not ag, so.
Are you affecting their drainage at all, or
We're helping their drainage.
positively then?
Yeah. They've got, the water just spills out onto their property and then dries up and then they can plow it. So we'll be taking and improving that, so they'll be able to plow it more regularly probably.
It seems to be going after limiting access to the land, any soil impacts, excavation or compaction of the soil profile of the active agricultural land, that type of thing.
The intent, I believe, for how it's worded is, are you taking ag land and taking ag land away, that's being used as ag.
So the answer currently is no. That says skip down to 9 if we agree with that. I'll read the question again. The proposed action may impact agricultural resources, and it does give you some references. See part 1, point E, point 3, small a and b. It's not an active agricultural land right now. Okay, so we're going to accept the no answer?
Yes.
Okay. Moving on to section 9, impact on aesthetic resources. All right, the land use of the proposed action are obviously different from or are in sharp contrast to the current land patterns between the proposed project and a scenic or aesthetic resource. They have said no. Do we agree with that? And what they're saying here, the questions would go down, is the proposed action visible from any officially designated federal, state, or local scenic or aesthetic resource? Officially designated being the key words there. The proposed action may result in the obstruction, elimination, or significant screening of one or more officially designated scenic views. I think we're talking Mount Rushmore here.
There are no scenic or
Well-
aesthetic resources within this neighborhood. So I think no is probably appropriate.
All right, I think the discussion is
There's
good.
no Grand Canyons or Mount Rushmores or anything like that.
Nothing to say here, move on.
10. Impact on historic and archaeological resources. The answer here is no, and it goes through questions kind of like, the proposed action may occur wholly or partially within or substantially contiguous to any buildings, archaeological site or district which is listed on the National State Register of Historic Places or that have been determined by the Commissioner of the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation to be eligible for listing on the New York State Register of Historic Places.
Well, and again, they need to submit a letter to the state
Right.
requesting, is there anything in this area around
Right.
this property? And the answer they got was
It's
no.
not within an archaeological sensitive
Maybe
area.
there's no hidden cabins.
No, not that anybody knows about.
No chief renomance?
Yeah.
You know, I'm obsessed with the Oak Island thing, Jim. But if they ever find anything there, the show is over, so they can't. All right, that moves us on to number 11, impact on open space and recreation. And I'll read it here. The proposed action may result in a loss of recreational opportunities or a reduction of open space resource as designated in any adopted municipal open space plan. I am not aware of this being that way, but by the same token, I know that this was one of the big things that folks had a little bit of heartburn about, is that that we were gonna change the view of either what they had or what they wanted.
And the reason I answered the way I did was because it sort of leans towards it being recreational opportunities for the public. This is private property.
Right. Well, I think
There's
what's
nothing
more,
officially
it's
designated
probably
here.
the impact on open space is probably more significant, because obviously, right now it is open space, there's nothing on it.
Right, and what I would
You're
point
gonna
is,
turn out, it's gonna turn into 144 townhomes on it. But the question is, was it designated in any adopted municipal open space plan as open space?
No.
I'm not aware of it, as
no, it
Peter
was,
Elder said.
and for the discussion, it was mentioned in the comprehensive plan for the village, which is a little dated right now, but the mention was R1 or something like that.
The mention is that it should be developed as single-family houses and have a little park or something on it. But that's not really,
It's not.
That doesn't
it's not
fit
really open.
this definition. I agree with that. I just think that we need to be sure that we have this discussion and we go through it and we assess.
It's not like the town has, it's old now, but the town actually did an open space plan. You know, and the town tries to acquire open space, Penfield does the same thing. But the village really doesn't have such an animal, just because there's not a lot of open space in the village to begin with.
So do we agree that there's nowhere little impact?
No.
We're getting closer.
Don't, all right, I heard,
I'll confuse.
you did that on purpose, I know. All right. All right, so we agree there's no village open space plan is my comment here, and we accept the answer of no. That puts us down to impact on critical environments. Okay, the proposed action may be located within or adjacent to a critical environmental area or CEA. I suspect that is as designated by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. It is not a designated critical environmental area. I would agree with that. I would agree with that answer. Rest of the folks here? All right, we got no's all around. Impact on transportation. Okay, does the proposed action may result in a change in existing transportation systems. And what it goes to is the proposed network may increase or exceed the capacity, may result in construction of a paved parking area for 500 or more vehicles, degrade existing transit access. The proposed action will degrade existing pedestrian and vehicle bicycle accommodations. Proposed action may alter the present system of the movement of goods or people. That's what it's going after there. We can say yes or no to that. There are 5 questions. Kathy thinks no?
Empty piece of land, we're not discussing anything like that.
I would have said yes.
Why?
Because, first of all, traffic was one of the things that we heard the most about from the folks here. And wait a second, and I didn't get to it until I got to the last question, but the proposed action may alter, the second to last question. The proposed action will degrade existing pedestrian or bicycle accommodations. We also heard in meetings 1 or 2 about hiking paths and things that people did back there that they may or may not be able to. I'm not thinking that that's a huge impact, but I think it's one that needs the discussion. It is my thought.
They were called trespassers.
Right. How do we discuss it? That was my private property.
Thanks.
Well, yeah.
In the due diligence phase, why don't we go through it? We'll move that over. I'm going to initial this and take that away. So the proposed traffic increase may exceed the capacity of the existing road network. Both the state and the county, was the county involved in that? All right, both the state and the county did not seem to think that, did not come back to you and say you gotta put in a 4-lane highway and a turning lane, right?
Right.
So no or little impact? Agreed. Proposed action may result in construction of a paved parking area for 500 or more vehicles. No? No, I think we all agree on that. The proposed action will degrade existing transit access. No or little impact, as is evidenced by the traffic study and the response from the state and the county. The proposed action will degrade existing pedestrian or bicycle accommodations. Nothing officially exists on that. We would be foolish to say that we don't know that people do walk through the area, but there are no existing pedestrian or bicycle accommodations by the state or village in that area. So no or little impact? Go ahead, Bill. Okay. The proposed action may alter present pattern of movement of people or goods. No, everyone agree? No or small impact. Other impacts, not that we're aware of. Impact on energy, this is, we move down to 14, the impact on energy. The proposed action may cause an increase in the use of any form of energy.
I would agree.
All right, we think that's a yes, I would agree with that. The proposed action will require a new or upgrade to an existing substation.
Well, we don't.
You gonna be able to handle this?
Our genie says they can serve the property.
That's what I thought, no or little prod. All right. The proposed action will require the creation or extension of an energy transmission or supply system to serve more than 50 single or 2-family residences or to serve a commercial or industrial use. Not that I'm aware of. Agreed. The proposed action may utilize more than 2,500 megawatts per year of electricity. How would you figure that?
How much is 2,500 megawatts?
Yeah. How much electricity in a year will the average townhouse use up?
I don't know, but nowhere near 2,500. I don't know exactly
I
how
don't
much,
know either.
but those
Whatever
are.
it is, multiply times 144 and see if it exceeds 2,500 megawatt hours per year.
I'm just curious, that one above there, that talked about the expansion or creation of a energy transmission or supply system to serve more than 50 single or two-family homes. It's, I don't, those are townhomes, is that different? Is this
No,
24?
that would qualify in my mind. What got me there was the transmission lines.
Oh,
Well, it says extension of an energy transmission system. Well, RG&E's got to bring electricity to the site somewhere. Isn't that an extension of an energy transmission system?
Yeah, but to me, then, they have to upgrade what already is on state road in
Well,
order.
so the answer to that may be yes, but then you got to decide again.
Is
that
it
a small-
significant
is
or
that
no?
a significant impact or a small impact? It may be a small impact, because, it's not like you're constructing, 1,000 houses or something.
So for what it's worth, it says a typical home uses 11 megawatts per year. So
Is that right?
So times 124 is 1364 per year.
All right, so you're under the 2,500.
Based on what the internet says, we're nowhere close.
well, it has to be true, right?
That's true.
In a previous time, we'd have had to
I
call
read it.
break to this meeting and bring you back next month for that. All right. All right, so we've got no or minimal impact there, it's not gonna go above that. I wanna go back to B, the proposed action will require the creation or extension of energy transmission or supply system to serve more than 50 single or two-family homes, or to serve a commercial or industrial use. Yes, we do agree that it meets that, and this is 14B, but no, we don't believe that it's significant or not. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, it's probably a small impact. But
Small to mid.
Yes, they got to bring
We have to
electricity.
know the small.
Yes, you got to bring electricity to the site, but it's not going to significantly affect it.
Agreed. We talked about the proposed 2,500 meg. All right, the cooling action may involve heating or cooling more than 100,000 square feet of building area when completed. Yeah. So do we think that's a large impact? Do we all agree on that? Okay. Other impacts on the impact on the energy? Anything?
No.
All right, impact on noise, odor, and light. The proposed action may result in an increase in noise, odors, or outdoor lighting. Yes, I do believe it will. We said yes to it, we'll move on to the questions A through F. The proposed action may produce sound above noise levels established by local regulation.
No, it's small, I guess small impact, construction noise.
So we think it's a small or no impact? Okay. The proposed action will result in blasting within 1,500 feet of any residence, hospital, school, licensed daycare center, or nursing home. Small or minimal impact. What I heard on this earlier was that they would prefer not to blast, but they may run into a few limited situations when that occurs. So you might blast.
Well, we don't foresee, obviously, we're designed to not do any blasting for the construction of homes. While putting in some sewer locations, we may bump into some rock and some
Right.
deeper locations, but that would be it.
Now, that comes under a permit with who, or do you have a standing permit that you exist, that you use?
I think it's just village.
whatever requirements the village would have.
Well, and the fire
Village
marshal,
requirements.
and then I'd have to be able to be the one that hit the button.
Okay, so and that's where I wanted to go with this, was that there is a mechanism that causes us to stop, get in touch with Jake or the village, with Jake, and make sure that the fire marshal and the appropriate people are involved, and we're not doing it at 6 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock at night.
Right.
So smaller, maybe smaller minimal impact or a large impact?
Small.
I would have agreed with that. All right, the proposed action may result in routine odors for more than 1 hour per day. I didn't get that out of this, and I'm looking at a whole project, even 124 houses, that I'm not seeing an odor like a sauerkraut processing plant or something like that. What's wrong with sauerkraut? All right, moving on to 15D. The proposed action may result in light shining onto adjoining properties. They've suggested that the answer be no or minimal. So let's break this question down a little bit. Yes, there will be light shining onto adjoining areas, particularly as you drive out onto either 250 or State Road. Have we taken all the actions that we can to minimize that? We increased the number of trees along State Road. Have we done something sufficient or heard any other comments from the folks along 250? And
building light will be.
go ahead, I'm sorry.
Link, didn't you come back with changing to some light positioning?
Well, we changed to the LED, and they're dark sky compliant, and we have photometrics on the lighting plan to minimize light spillage in any of the property lines. So it's all contained on the site, basically.
All right, and so the ones
And
going
the
up,
intersections are, will be lit a little bit, but we're not spilling onto adjoining properties.
But there's the vehicle's headlights as they exit onto State Road and or 250.
correct.
Right.
But we did add landscaping to try to,
And on the turning, as you get in there, we did do the landscape. So so the answer is yes, there is gonna be impact. Is it significant?
And we discussed the LEDs too, I don't know if that made it in there as far as the color temperature and having them consistent with the village, where they're more like the 3,000 instead of the 5,000.
yeah, we revised them to, the village standard light to an LED on the lighting plans.
Right, they moved over to whatever the village requires, Jake.
Yeah, we use a lower color temperature on them because there's a stark difference when you get into the, if you use a 5,000 color temperature on the calls or the landing strip, so we don't want it to be consistent. And more that they have that softer, the orange or yellow glow.
Yeah, you can take a look at them and make sure we got the right ones.
Not the ones at the bridge down the road.
Yeah, right.
The other ones look good.
So on the lighting, I want to continue the discussion. Have we done everything that is reasonably, I don't know, I guess the money was no object, there's all kinds of things that we could do. But have we done everything that a reasonable man would do to lessen the impact of any lighting? And this is particular from the vehicles, I believe, by the placement and the type of lighting that we've used for streetlights, for lack of a better word. I think we've addressed that. I think we're talking about headlights coming in and out of the place at night or early in the morning.
Right, and that's why we added these pines on here.
Right.
And the landscaping along the front,
So, assessment of impact. Small. Bill? Small Bill, Kathy, good. So I'm hearing small or no impact. Okay. I would agree with that. Number 16, oh, excuse me. E, the proposed action may result in light creating sky glow brighter than existing area conditions. I think we've come into compliance with the village's request to do just that. The plan was addressed or modified or changed just slightly to do that, and I don't think that we're gonna have a Xerox-like glow in that area. So we would agree. Impact on human health. That's number 16, and this is the second to last, third to last of ours. The proposed action may have an impact on human health from exposure to new or existing sources of contaminants. Maybe a little dust during construction, but that's not going to stay a long time, and I think the ongoing impact is what we're talking about here. Like earlier, with the sauerkraut plant, I don't think we're going to have that. Do we, what does everybody else think?
I agree.
Agree. All right, so that takes us out of 16 on the impact on human health. All right, consistency with community plans. The proposed action is not consistent with adopted land use plans. Land use plans, I believe, is our zoning, is that correct? All right, the property is currently zoned R2. We've had the discussion around R1, or was it changed from R1 at some time in the past? I don't know that. I know that for this use, R2 does allow this type of development. As a matter of fact, it encourages this type of development. And it's almost a double negative here. The proposed action is not consistent with adopted land use plans. I'd say no, it is consistent. Everybody agree?
Agreed.
That moves us on to section 18. Consistency with community character. The proposed project is inconsistent with existing community character.
Why'd you check yes?
No,
Well,
that's in
think
the,
about how it's worded too here. The proposed project is inconsistent with existing community character.
Sorry. That was too honest, I guess.
So the proposed project is inconsistent with existing, if you think it is consistent, you would say, no, it's not inconsistent. If you think it is inconsistent, you would say yes.
Why did you think it was inconsistent?
Right, because my initial reaction was with the number of things that are already up in the village and.
What are the questions? There might have been one that what are the questions underneath it? I can't remember.
Okay, the proposed action may replace or eliminate existing facilities, structures, or areas of historic importance to the community.
Nope.
The proposed action may create demand for additional community services, for example, schools, fire, and police.
That's probably
Yes,
why.
that's
I
probably-
believe in the manual, there's a reason that triggers that. Because there's a handbook that you go through when you fill it out, so.
and I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What was the name of that booklet?
There's a DEC handbook that you go through when you're filling this out, and there's certain things that trigger a yes or a no.
Okay.
So that's what, that one was probably the one that triggered it, because we are going to be using, fire and
Right.
emergency vehicles and, school, there's potential for the schools to be used, if there's kids and things, so there is a potential, so that's probably why I checked the way it is.
You know what, let's go through with that. No, I have no problem with that. If we say, yes, it is inconsistent, it says the proposed action may replace or eliminate existing facilities, structures, or areas of historic importance to the community. I would think not, but listen to you guys. No?
There's nothing there.
All right, the proposed action may create demand for additional community services like schools, police, and fire. The answer partly is yes, it will create additional demand. Is it substantial or significant? I would say it's small, so it fits into the small impact. The proposed action may displace affordable or low-income housing in an area where there is a shortage of such housing. I don't think so. That's smaller and medium impact, and the answer is no or small impact. The proposed action may interfere with the use or enjoyment of officially recognized or designated public resources. It is neither of those. Okay, the proposed action is inconsistent with the predetermined architectural scale and character. I would have thought that was small or no impact also. The proposed action is inconsistent with the character of existing natural landscape. My thought would have been no more than anywhere else. All right, and any other impacts that we can think of?
The other reason I might have checked that one is because of the area variance, which you might want to add there. That you granted. Because that was a variance from the code for the project.
Setback?
Yeah.
Right. And so how do we feel about that granting of the area variance? We did almost two meetings ago.
Right.
I would say, you know, it's limited to that area, it's consistent then within that area. I would have thought that impact would have been small to no impact. All right. So that takes us through the long form on the seeker.
So now what you're supposed to do is you go back to the part 2 that you just filled out. And everywhere that you checked a box for moderate to a large impact, now you have to ask yourself, well, will that result in a significant adverse environmental impact or not? And two moderate to larges were checked. Whether it involves construction that continues for more than 1 year or in multiple phases. But is building it in phases going to have a significant adverse environmental impact?
And I would have, you know, I'm willing to discuss that. My initial reaction was, that's the way the project should go along.
Well, it'll probably have less of an impact because they're spreading it out.
Because they're
doing
spreading it out.
The only significant impact is if they don't finish.
Well, but you can't, you know.
That's the impact.
And what did you say was the other one? Because I can't
And
remember.
the other one was the 100,000 square feet, whether it involves heating or cooling of more than 100,000 square
okay.
feet of building area. All right, but is that going to have a significant adverse environmental impact?
RG&E doesn't have any problem with supplying this subdivision, or they would have told you to do something else from the power supply. I think they're going to be pretty efficient air conditioners or lighting systems or otherwise.
They'll meet code, you know.
They'll meet code, meet or exceed.
Mhm.
So, do we think that that is a significant impact?
Significant adverse.
Significant adverse
Adverse is the
impact.
key word.
Thank you. All right. So having gone back through this, we've gone through and we've now addressed those things that we thought were medium, moderate to large impact. We've determined that there's not a significant adverse impact associated with either one of those. And those, by the way, were 1E, if anybody's interested, and, hold on, I'll get to it. And 14D were the two that we talked about. So then, do we have to make it to that?
So, I don't know if you have, it's a little 2-page part 3, I don't know if you have that. It was handed out back in December when this project first came in front of you all. Joe gave it to each of you, but if you don't have it, so here. I'll bring up. So this is the final, so I checked this. This is part one and part two. This is now.
All right. Moving ourselves right along. We have gone through part one. We have gone through part two of the State Environmental Quality Review section. We are now into part three. And what we do here with part three is this is when we get to a negative declaration or a positive declaration, if that's how we made it. But what I'm looking for here is on this is a motion to determine that this project will result in no significant adverse environmental impact, and therefore the environmental impact statement need not be prepared. Accordingly, this negative declaration is issued. Conversely, you could go the other way on that too. Both of them are open, but I need a motion after we've gone through this process here to go one way or the other. If anybody wants some help with it, I'll pass it along so they can read the motion if they would like. All right, so I have been asked by Bill Baker to read the negative declaration, and that is that this project will result in no adverse impacts on the environment, and therefore an environmental impact statement need not be prepared. Accordingly, this negative declaration is issued.
Will somebody make a motion to that effect?
I make a motion for that, back what you just said.
All right, we have a motion on the table to approve this as a negative declaration. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Kathy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Okay, it is so ordered. We got a negative impact on statement. Good job. All right, now we have at least two other things to do. Having gone through this, having held a public hearing, having allowed comments for and against this on 3 different occasions over the past several months, and having had multiple iterations of the plan, changes to the plan to accommodate some of the citizens' concerns, what I am looking for at this point is they have applied for a final subdivision approval for 124 townhouse lots or units and a proposed community center to be developed in 4 sections or phases pursuant to 137-5G of the Village Code.
Mark?
Yes, sir.
One thing we did not talk about, last month, the preliminary site plan approval was based on 3 contingencies. Landscape plan, sidewalk connections, and the easement for the sidewalk. We talked about sidewalk, that's on the plan. We talked about the easement for a sidewalk all the way along the length of State Road. Is this the latest and greatest landscape plan, and do we accept it?
Good point.
That would satisfy
No.
our contingency.
Very good point. Those were 3 clear-cut conditions.
Well, yes, the landscape plan has been updated to show the additional landscaping that it's consistent with what I showed you. This plan has been updated to show that landscaping as well.
Okay. So, they propose, they have resolved, they have addressed the 3 contingencies. They have a landscape plan signed by a registered architect. We initially said we
We were talking about using our own.
yes. So we should
But then
resolve.
we backed off on that and said you were gonna go out, you were gonna have your architect address the area. That has been done, he stamped it.
So do we accept it as the first contingency?
Anybody have any concerns, further questions, or otherwise?
Well, there was a throw-off to putting more plants on 250 entrance.
Right.
You said something about that. I don't think that was talked about last time. You said it in regards to the gentleman who was talking about the height of the houses off of 250. Am I
Well,
mistaken? or-
there is some landscaping there.
Okay.
shown.
I mean, different from the last meeting last month?
No, it's still consistent with the landscaping
I
that's
think
there.
that's what we're talking about then.
Well, one clarification. They're only asking for final subdivision and site plan approval for phase one,
Correct.
Oh, okay.
not for the entire thing. So when they come back for, I guess that's 3 or 4.
Section 2.
Or 2, you can address additional landscaping on 250 at that point. And then, because they're only asking for final subdivision approval on phase one, when they come back to the other phases, those are all gonna be subject to additional, separate public hearings
Thank
also, so.
Well, wait, aren't they asking for final subdivision approval for the 124 lots? And
If you
final,
look at the map that they gave you.
and final section 1 approval?
No.
That's what,
That's the way I read
this
this.
is how it was written.
Look what their letter says, it's only for section 1. And look at the subdivision map that they submitted.
Right, but,
The subdivision map is only for phase 1.
but we've only given them preliminary approval for the overall subdivision.
Correct.
Correct.
So don't they need final approval for the entire subdivision before they can ask for section 1 site plan?
Yeah, I mean, I would say if you wanna,
Well, they have to submit a different map than this one, because this is only section 1.
Conditional or final approval of the sections of the final plan may be granted concurrently or with conditional or final approval of the entire plan.
Right.
Maybe,
You
they
could
have
have
to
come
be.
in and asked for final subdivision on the entire thing, but that's not what you did.
well, we're only gonna file the first 31 lots.
And that's
But we're
fine.
looking for final, you know, if we need final overall, you could issue the final overall on the preliminary
But
plans.
unfortunately, that's not how it's written in the agenda. So that's what the public is going with. I agree with you,
So really, section 2 should.
but that's not what,
Well,
I agree.
Look,
This is,
I think from the public's point of view, especially if you're not really in favor of this project, they would prefer that you only grant final approval of phase 1, so that they gotta come back for public hearings on all the other ones.
which you're gonna have to do anyways.
No.
Final approval for section 2, final approval
No.
for section 3, final approval for section 4.
Not necessarily. If you look at, no, because a public hearing is not required for site plan approval under the village code. It's permissive. You don't, it's not a mandatory public hearing. It's mandatory for subdivision approval, but not site plan approval, is the way this code is. So you can do it for the whole thing if you want, but now you got to address, are you satisfied with the landscaping on Route 250?
That's why I was happy that we can take care of that in section 2.
So,
But you granted, again, going back to what Chris said, the condition of preliminary was a landscape plan for the entire project, all 4 phases.
So what are you asking though? Because to me, now you're saying, because they haven't shown the landscaping for section 2, we shouldn't approve it?
Yeah, I'm okay. They only asked for section 1, so.
I mean, I guess what's the downside of just getting final for section 1? I mean, is there a final, do I need final site for the whole thing? And then, I mean, I'm gonna have to come back for final subdivision for each phase because we're only gonna file the lots that we're building. So
Right.
that he's not paying taxes
Yeah.
on all the lots. So I have to come back for final for subdivision in each one. So does it make sense to give me a final site for the whole thing? I mean, the code is a little, it's, does it make sense to give me final site for the whole thing and make a condition that for section 2 final subdivision, we review the landscaping on 250, and then we just do final subdivision for the first 31, because that's all I'm going to need to file with the county is the first section for the subdivision plan. Did any of
I
that
don't
make
think it
sense?
really matters, because you're gonna have to come back here for approval of each phase anyhow, whether it's subdivision and/or site plan. It doesn't really matter.
Okay, that's why I'm just not sure, so.
So, yeah, I'm okay, I think you can proceed as they propose and just give them final on both subdivision and site plan approval just for phase 1.
So that means we're not approving, yeah, this is where I get a little, we're not approving the entire project and then giving final.
No, yes,
You've given preliminary approval of the entire project. But
Agreed.
you're not giving final approval of the entire project.
right. We're approving phase 1.
Right.
Phase 2 has to come with the landscape plan. Phase
Yeah.
3, phase 4.
I just want to make sure that your question about the landscaping for 250 is not in this,
Correct.
that's what I'm getting at. So, to me,
Right.
this section addresses our concerns for landscaping. But it doesn't address the landscaping on 250.
On 250.
So as long as we're okay when we get section 2 plans, that we,
Well, wouldn't you make it contingent? On final
You've
approval?
you've already granted preliminary site plan approval for the entire, all 4 phases.
Preliminary site
With,
plan approval. Agreed.
with a contingency of approval of a landscape plan.
Right.
They've only supplied you with a final landscape plan for phase 1. So, in my way of thinking, they gotta come back with a final landscape plan that's subject to your approval for the next 3 phases.
Okay,
And so if they don't come back with one that you don't like for 250, you don't give them approval for the phase.
so we're gonna have our meeting minutes show then that we saw condition 1 that we had at the last meeting fulfilled, condition 2 fulfilled, and then the final site plan, what do you got?
Well, the motions will be for the overall site plan approval, with the contingency of a bona fide submitted landscape plan for each subsequent phase, because you only gave us phase 1. And then, second part of the motion is the final site plan approval for phase 1, with the landscape plan as submitted. That's what it's going to come out to when you agree with that.
Yep, I think we're good with that.
It's pretty straightforward. What's on this one? That's right.
Don?
Yeah, you're gonna grant, you wanna give them final site
Final
plan
site plan
approval for all 4 phases?
No.
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 Just for the subdivision.
No, you don't wanna grant them final subdivision approval for everything, because then they gotta come up with a map with all 144 lots, and once they do that, they're gonna get assessed for property taxes on these 144 lots, and it's gonna cost a lot of money. Whereas if it's just left as a big vacant open space, you pay a lot less in taxes. So that's why they wanna approve the subdivision approval in phases, because now they only have to file the map with the county, which affects property taxes.
So you would
For
do,
just
if we
just
were
the
so
first-
inclined to approve, we would approve subdivision for phase 1.
Right.
And final site plan approval for phase 1.
Yes.
affect your permitting with DOT, MCDOT, anything?
Nope, that's typically how it's, typically, we get an overall preliminary approval. You bring in the final sections, if they're consistent with the preliminary approval, you come back, you bring in the final plan for the section that you're building, and you get final subdivision approval, and then that satisfies what we gotta do to build that section.
I don't know if doesn't that sound different from,
That's a little different than,
or Don? I don't remember breaking it up into subsequent meetings, but it's been a while since we've had a large development, I guess. So how do we?
Well, we limit it to phase one.
Right.
That's what we're doing.
In our, what was,
But that's not what was public notice, which gave Michael a hard time.
so what did the public notice say?
Well, the public notice said subdivision approval for all 4 phases. But
So we can change that?
you can change that, because like, as I said, from the public's point of view.
Well, we're not
Now
increasing.
you're gonna require 3 more public hearings, whereas if you grant final subdivision approval for the whole thing, technically, you don't have to have another public hearing to approve the next phases.
Mhm.
So make them come back 3 more times for each phases, and those will be subject to a public hearing. It'll be subject to your approval of the landscape plans for that particular phase. And just do it in phases.
Michael?
I agree with that.
Just
Want
because
to
you,
clarify what was, he was asking about landscaping and 250.
On 250, right.
So we don't have plans for that.
Right.
But that's not phase one.
Right, and it's phase 2, but how did you wanna, were you gonna hold the approval for section 1 because we haven't seen phase 2? That's what I was questioning.
No, that's not what I got.
Okay.
I got that if we were so inclined, we could move ahead with phase 1,
Mhm.
and that would give you final on phase 1.
And I agree with that.
Right.
But then when I was reading that, it's saying, oh, we're going final, all 124.
I get that, but I
agree.
don't feel as
You're-
bad
you're
about the
granting-
public
you're
notice.
This is the way it should be. I agree.
Yes.
You're granting lesser relief than was.
Yes, that was asked for,
Well,
not
that's
more.
okay. If you're granting more relief.
That's
than
a
was
problem.
publicized, that's not good. But you're granting less relief, so that's okay. From a notice perspective.
I'm fine with it.
And then I think they heard that when they come back for phase 2, they probably gotta beef up the landscaping or at the 250 entrance.
It gives us an opportunity to have that discussion at least.
Yes. Yes.
And if the board was so inclined to move in that direction, is that all right with you?
Yes. Yeah, and our discussion last time, we didn't focus on 250, because our
No, we
discussion
did
in this
not.
meeting was really just focused on state road. So we didn't even look over there, but I assume that's how we would do this anyways, is come back for each section for final approvals, as we're discussing.
All right.
Long term, how many years is this whole project gonna take?
As we just,
For example, when do you think you're gonna be back here for final approval for phase 4?
I imagine it's approximately 5 years. It just depends, start up and you're ramping up and ramping down portions, so it's 5 to 7 years for the overall.
All right. If we're all clear on what we can and cannot do, we can approve or we can deny. And we've talked about what we can approve and what we're concerned with still getting, if you're inclined to approve. So at that point, I'm looking for a motion one way or the other.
I thought you were gonna give me a landscape landscape plan for the entire site.
Well, there is a landscape plan for the whole site that was part of the overall preliminary plan that you approved.
But we were addressing, to some extent, because of public input, the type of tree and the height and all that sort of thing. So I think that's what we're looking for on paper, on a plan, to see that at some point.
No, I submitted it. The overall preliminary plan had a full landscape plan.
Right.
The only thing that changed from that plan is what we added for this plan,
Okay.
along State Road. The overall preliminary plan had a full landscaping plan. This is just the landscape plan for final for section 1, which we talked about the condition being to show that additional landscaping with the final plan for section 1. So I think we've done everything that was asked, that I understood was asked for that condition.
Except in discussion today, I don't remember the gentleman's name, John, that who lived off of Webster Road.
Yeah.
He made his concern was a aesthetic, visionary concern looking from his house into the entrance off of 250. And if I recall, you said, well, maybe we could put some more vegetation there, some trees there. That's what I recall. And that's all I was bringing it up. Since you threw that out, he was a public citizen that requested it. Is that correct, sir?
That's right, I mean, I got two concerns here, the visual effect of the high mound there,
Right.
and hadn't discussed the landscaping part of it, but I would like them to move the units back a little bit if possible. But that's section 2. Approve section 1 and we'll get section 2
What I'm saying
later
is
on.
with the landscape thing, but what I'm saying with the landscape aspect, if I recall, I think you did say maybe we could add some trees there. Then you also mentioned the fact that the first house was over 100 feet from 250 already, and so the point, it wasn't right on 250. That's all I'm driving at, is that do we want to pursue that change, which may be an advantage?
Well, what this gives us is the opportunity to pursue that, because we're not approving that phase of the project.
Exactly, and that's what I see that.
If we are happy with what's been done along State Road, and so far for phase 1, you have the ability to break it up and grant approvals that way, or you have the ability to deny the project.
So be it.
You want final subdivision approval.
Just for this,
All
Just
lots.
for this.
Just section 1.
This is one.
They're asking
Yeah, we've
subdivision
decided we're gonna
approval.
give them less.
Actually,
if we go-
read the letter that they submitted. The letter, they only asked for phase 1 in their letter.
And in addition,
The publication was erroneous, okay?
So
The
this-
notice. But because you're considering less relief than was noticed, that's okay. You can't grant them more relief than what was published.
Or you can say no entirely.
That, you could say no entirely.
Then you're not giving them any
that
relief.
is
So
true also.
you can always give them more later.
Although I suppose if you're going to deny approval for phase 1, why are they gonna come back for 2, 3, and 4, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't make a lot of sense.
So if someone was inclined to grant approval, we would be granting approval to phase 1, final approval
Final subdivision approval. for
You need
for
two,
phase 1.
And final site
you need
plan.
2 separate motions to address
If,
final subdivision approval for phase 1 and
Correct.
final site plan approval.
if that's what we want to do.
Or
If-
to
if
deny
we-
either of those.
Thank you.
But it's 2 motions, whether you approve or deny.
Okay. All right. Clear with me. All right, I would like to make a motion
Thank you.
for positive recommendation for final subdivision approval for phase 1 for the construction of, what is it, 31 townhouse units,
Yep.
subdivision.
Okay, stop there. That's enough for right now. All right, so we have a motion on the table for final subdivision approval for phase 1 of this project. We need to have it seconded.
Oh, I'll second.
Kathy Bills seconds it. I need to hear if everyone is in favor. Michael?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Bill and Kathy? Anyone opposed? We went through five ayes. All right, we're not done yet. They're also looking, for the second piece of that would be final site plan approval for phase 1 to develop the 31 units.
I would like to make that motion for final site plan approval for phase 1 as submitted with the landscape plan and all the contingencies responsible.
Okay, we have that motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Kathy Bills has seconded it. I'll go through us one at a time. Michael?
Aye.
Good.
Aye.
Aye. Bill? Kathy?
Aye.
All ayes? No nays? The motion is passed.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
So before we adjourn, and before you can get going on this, we got to address the performance bond or letter of credit. And the way the village code works is that you have to come back to this board with a, so they can fix the amount of the letter of credit or the bond. So we need an engineer's estimate of what, just for phase 1, what the cost of the infrastructure is going to be in the landscaping. And then when you've got that together, you can make an application. And then they set the amount, and then it goes to the village board to approve the actual form of the, if it's a letter of credit. Usually it's a letter of credit.
Letter of credit.
Yeah, so you have your bank send us the letter of credit, and then the village board approves that. So whenever you're ready to do that,
After we close the letter of credit,
pardon me?
after it's closed on, after we already have it in place, so the amount gets established by this board, and then we close on our letter of credit and then submit it?
You can probably do it either way, either beforehand, whichever way your bank prefers, I guess.
We
It's
just, typically, I mean, the typical process, this is unusual, because usually we just work with town engineer and submit a letter of credit amount, and they agree that that's valid. Once it's approved by the town engineer, then we just get that with our bank, we get a letter of credit, and submit it to the town. So just, whatever that order is.
Here it's a little more cumbersome because it's a two-step process. You gotta come to this board to approve the amount, not the town or village engineer. And then when they approve the amount, it goes to the village board to actually, the talks about, and shall be approved by the village forum as to form, sufficiency, and manner of execution, whatever that means. So if it's before your bank issues it or after the bank issues it, it really doesn't matter to us.
We just wanna make sure we have the right amount to the bank, that's all.
Right, so
That's
this board sets the amount, and then you can go and get it through your bank, and then you'll submit that to the village board for their approval.
And is there somebody we should work with on establishing that amount, or just?
With
Jake?
Jake.
Okay. Perfect. That's what I thought you were gonna say.
I can't read lips, I have this.
Now, Don, I have a question.
Yeah.
Because the village has run into problems with developers in the past, does the letter of credit address the entire project? Because
The entire project hasn't been approved, so I don't know how they could submit a letter of credit for the entire project.
Yeah, we're only gonna hire a contractor to build phase 1, so the release is tied to whatever the contract.
You gotta get your letter of credit then for every phase.
Yeah.
Right, every phase, there'll be a separate letter of credit.
Yeah, You got,
They need 4 letters.
We'll get 4 letters
you
of
got
credit.
a road that goes to nowhere.
Right, but so, we don't need to build sections 2, 3, 4. We're not gonna be in the housing market. As long as there's turnarounds and the fire truck goes this way and go out that way.
You'll just have a little dead end horseshoe street.
Right, but I mean, remember, we had problems with another developer where they didn't finish
lot
the
easier.
road, they didn't finish the sidewalk, they
Don't-
didn't build it.
That wasn't around,
Everybody
around
got stuck.
Approved. Well, the project wasn't approved in phases.
Besides that,
Right, and it was all one thing. And then he went filling up in the middle.
you try to plan for everything.
Well, here, like Mike said, it's not like you're gonna have, you know, at least you're gonna have a completed phase 1.
Yeah.
And that's all that ever happens, that's all that ever happens. They're like,
We need a motion to adjourn.
Do we have anything else real quickly? Remember, everybody, we have a meeting March 4th, 7 PM. Say that again?
The daughter, basically, is that
2
we're
weeks.
close to 10 million bucks to build.
It's gonna be the first Thursday in
Whatever
March.
it's
No, this is an accommodation, Mr. Chairman.
Guys, we're still
Take them off the
recording.
agenda tonight. And the 18th, or whatever it becomes of February, March, excuse me.
Right now, we don't have an application.
Okay,
if the signed one comes in, you might have to meet on the 18th, but.
It's a potential, but right now it's not
So,
a definite.
We, we're kind of hopefully have it tomorrow, if she does that tomorrow, we'll be able to find it.
Oh, thanks.
Right.
I mean,
What's the submission date for the next meeting?
pardon me?
What's the submission date for the next meeting?
Well,
Mark, can we adjourn?
can we have a
Right now, the
motion?
next submission date is
Bill
tomorrow.
wants to get out of here, all in favor? Aye. Loud, thank you.
So, all right, I gotta meet on.